"Hi. I don't have time to take you outside. I've got to go." Those were the words Rebecca almost said, but never did. Because the moment she stepped into that dim Orlando shelter in 2018, something quiet and unshakable shifted inside her. She hadn't planned to adopt. She hadn't even owned a cat before. But then she saw him, a small, shy feline tucked in the back of a quiet kennel, eyes wide and watchful, as if the whole world had already taught him to be careful. And then, a sound. Just as Rebecca turned to leave, a soft, trembling meow floated through the air. Barely there, almost apologetic. But it reached her like a thread pulling straight to her heart. She turned back. That was the first time she saw Atlas. His name wasn't Atlas yet. The shelter called him No Info, because that's all they knew. He'd been surrendered with no history, no paperwork. Just a note that said he'd lived with someone, mostly fed table scraps, and, oh, yes, he had no tail. Just a little nub, barely visible beneath his soft gray and white fur, that wiggled like a secret when he moved. Rebecca crouched slowly. Atlas didn't run, didn't hiss. He just watched her with eyes that seemed to hold galaxies. Deep, ancient, wise beyond his years. In that moment, she knew. Not in 5 hours, not in 5 days, in 5 minutes. This quiet, tailless cat was the one. She signed the papers before the shelter closed. And as she carried him to the car, swaddled in a towel that smelled of bleach and hope, Atlas let out one more meow, this one steadier, as if to say, "Okay, let's try this." The first few weeks were a dance of patience. Atlas barely made a sound. He hid under the bed at the slightest noise, a door closing, a pot clanging, even the hum of the refrigerator. Guests, forget it. The moment the doorbell rang, he vanished like smoke. But Rebecca didn't push. She'd sit on the floor beside the bed, singing softly, nonsense songs, lullabies, old pop tunes off-key, just to let him know she was there. And slowly, so slowly, he began to trust. First, a paw would peek out from under the bed. Then, a nose. Then, one evening, the softest nudge against her hand. And then, the meow. Not the loud, demanding kind. Not the hungry cry. But a tiny, almost silent sound, like a whisper of relief. "Oh, it's really you." That was his language. Not words, not commands, but meows, each one layered with meaning only Rebecca learned to read. There was the crunchy meow, the one he made just after waking, as if his voice needed a few warm-up notes before it found its tone. There was the cuddle meow, so soft it was more breath than sound, the one he made when he finally curled into her lap on the couch, eyes half closed, purring like a motorboat. And then there was the 3 a.m. meow, because by night, Atlas transformed. The shy daytime cat vanished, replaced by a playful, zooming whirlwind of energy. He'd leap from the couch to the bookshelf, pounce on invisible enemies in the hallway, and stare intently at shadows only he could see. And if Rebecca left the room, even for 5 minutes, and came back, he'd stretch dramatically, arch his back, give one loud theatrical meow, and stick out his tongue like he was sassing her. It always made her laugh. But the hardest times came after trips. Atlas didn't recognize people by sight. He recognized them by scent. So if Rebecca came home, smelling of shampoo, perfume, or even just the wind from a long drive, Atlas wouldn't know her. He'd flatten his ears, dart under the bed, and stay there, silent and still, until she sat on the floor and sang the same song she always did. Eventually, His eyes would peek out, then his nose, then the gentle meow that meant, "I remember you now." He was fiercely loyal to the rhythms of his world. When another cat in the house came back from the groomer smelling unfamiliar, Atlas sniffed him once, frowned, and hissed. Not out of anger, but betrayal. "You smell wrong. You're not mine anymore." But with Rebecca, he was devotion itself. On days when anxiety wrapped around her like a heavy blanket, Atlas stayed close. He didn't leap or play. He simply sat beside her, head resting on her knee, letting out soft, rhythmic meows that seemed to say, "I'm here. You're not alone." He didn't fix her pain. He didn't erase it. He just sat in it with her until it felt lighter. And in return, Rebecca promised him the one thing he'd never had: safety, forever. Atlas was set for life. No more table scraps. No more uncertainty. No more hiding in fear of a stick or a shadow from a past no one understood. Now his favorite pose was the loaf. Paws tucked neatly beneath him, chin high, eyes watching the world from a place of peace. His little tail nub twitched with contentment. He still startled at long objects. He still vanished when strangers arrived. But he always came back, because now he had a home, a human who sang to him, a heart that knew every note of his meows. And every rescued animal carries this spark, this quiet, trembling hope that someone will see them. Not just their scars, not just their fears, but their soul. Atlas wasn't broken because he had no tail. He wasn't damaged because he hid. He was a survivor, a gentle guardian of soft moments. A tiny philosopher who spoke in meows and stretched like a dancer when his person came home. If you're thinking about adopting, don't just look for the playful kitten or the confident adult. Look for the quiet one in the back. The one who watches with ancient eyes. The one who meows just once, softly, when you turn to leave. Open your heart. Learn their story. Share your patience. And let love bloom in the silence between sounds. Because sometimes, the most profound connections aren't loud. They're whispered. In a shelter, in a meow, in the trust of a tailless cat who finally dares to believe he belongs. "Hi. What you doing? Are you okay? Baby, hello, my baby." And every time he answered, Rebecca knew. This was never just adoption. It was a promise, a home, a forever.